Hello, everyone. Brenda Florida, certified life coach here, and welcome to this week's episode of Delight and Desire. I am a seeker of expansion, freedom, unapologetic, authentic self-expression. And I am doing this Instagram Live every Tuesday, same time, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. And of course it goes into my profile, so you can check it out there if you can't join us live, or to look for past episodes. The easiest way to probably find the past episodes is if you go to my YouTube channel. Then I've put them all in a podcast playlist, and I'll put a link to that in my bio here in Instagram so you can find those easily. But every week we're talking about something in regard to actually using what delights you and what your desires are as sort of like the roadmap to your authentic self-expression. Because I know, and hey Sherry, so good to see you here again this week. I know that authentic self-expression is easier said than done. And there are many of us and many things within our culture and our families that take us away from even knowing who we are unapologetically, knowing who we are authentically. I know for me, growing up, I had a family where I was very different. The things that delighted me and the things I desired were very different than my sisters, and certainly from my mother, and even, broader than that, out rippling effect into our family. And so there were many times that I ended up being shamed for who I was and what I wanted. And not because my family's so terrible, but we, criticize and shame each other in all kinds of ways. And as kids, we don't have any way of really processing that other than, that must mean I'm bad. Or some kids just rebel against it. So that's kind of different. But it still is the same thing. Rebellion doesn't mean we have stepped into owning our authentic nature. It just means we're rebelling instead of conforming, or maybe we haven't internalized the shame as much, but there's still shame often in rebellion. So what we are doing here every week for about 30 minutes is we're looking at different aspects of delight and desire and how we can use those as our roadmap to authentic and unapologetic self-expression, and the things that keep us from that, the things that are tripping us up. Because what happens is, as soon as we start to really focus on what delights us and what our desires are, that will naturally start to take us away from these conditioned ways of being that have kind of gotten us where we are so far in life, and so it's a way to discover really what our limiting beliefs are. So that might sound strange to you. But by identifying our delights, our desires, like doing the vision board, or, I love the question, if I wasn't going to hurt anybody's feelings and nobody would be upset and I had the money and the time, what would I do? Really? What would I do? In a whole bunch of ways. What would I do for fun? What would I do for work? What would I do in my relationships? On and on. When we can ask ourselves that and get an answer, so something comes up, I'll use my example. I mentioned this a few episodes ago, but I want to have a vacation and go spend a few nights at the Ritz in Paris. Now, it's terribly expensive. And so I can tell in the way I even just said that to you that I am still holding some shame that doing something that expensive is, a waste of money, or all the things that my family would have told me and that my family believed. But I don't believe that. I want to do that. Yes, it's super expensive And I would love every second of it. Every penny would feel worth it to me. And so as soon as I identify that as a desire, I can start to feel the blocks that I have to it. I can start to feel the limiting beliefs. I can start to feel that cultural conditioning, or hear, because it's a voice in my head that tells me not to do that. Oh, that's materialistic. I grew up in a fundamentally, evangelical, religious culture. So lots of shame around materialism and spending money and stuff like that. So all those things start to come out. So that's why I say that these can really be that roadmap to us for what's authentic, because it shows us what we really want, what our capital S self, our true self really wants. And then it also shows us those patterns or limiting beliefs that keep us from that. So let me know if that makes sense. Sherry, I'm sure you're a coach as well, so I'm sure that conceptually makes sense to you. And if anything I just said sparks a comment, please, share that with me here in the comments. And for anybody who's watching this in a, replay way, anything you want to put in the comments, I will go respond to them, after you comment. Or you can always DM me, because sometimes the things I talk about on here, and we're going to segue into desirable here in a moment. Sometimes I know that you might not feel comfortable to share with me in the comments, but feel free to DM me, because I love, in fact, I had somebody just this morning do that. And so I always love that when you share your thoughts and the things that one of these episodes makes you think of, or having a new awareness for, or maybe a tool you're going to use, or you have a question on, or whatever. Always feel free to DM me. So, all right, Sherry, super. Thanks for that feedback. I'm glad that makes sense. So let's talk about the feeling of desirable or desirability. I feel desirable. So we couldn't go, in fact, I'm surprised it took me this many episodes of Delight and Desire to get off on a topic that's at least coming into the sexual expression arena, because that is an arena I love to talk about and love to coach people about, because I have had I feel like a very broad spectrum of experiences in the sexual expression, or, my sexual experiences in my life, from, an initially very painful experience of being abused as a little girl, sexually abused, to, and actually repressing that memory. That's how awful that was for me. I repressed it until I was in my early 30s. So having that repressed trauma, probably wouldn't surprise you to know, I didn't have a great sexual relationship with my first husband. I got married right out of high school, so I was a virgin when I got married. So I had only had one sexual partner. We were having problems. I have this repressed trauma. There was just a lot of negative sexual energy going on there. And so that was, I spent, until I was in my mid-30s, I thought I hated sex. I thought I was frigid. There's something wrong with me. Why, everybody else acts like this is a great thing, and I think it's awful. All that kind of stuff you can imagine. Or maybe you've been there, or maybe you're there now. To getting divorced. And for me, it was having my first boyfriend after that, where I realized I didn't hate sex, that I actually loved it a lot. And it helped me put together the pieces, besides the fact that I had remembered the trauma at that part. That really helped me start to put together the pieces of what was going on in my relationship with my husband from a sexual perspective. And then when that marriage ended, and I had this first sexual experience outside of my husband, that really opened up a lot of doors. And then that just expanded through my, late 30s and into my 40s and early 50s, where I, am very comfortable to talk about things sexually. I'm very free sort of in my sexual expression most of the time. But over the last couple of years, a little maybe COVID related, I'm not sure, because I had my own personal crisis that started maybe a year before COVID hit. And so it's really hard for me to tell the difference between, was that really a COVID thing, or was that just because I was in such a significant crisis in so many arenas in my life for a long time, like 3 years. I just had all sorts of crises, not in my health, but, financially, that was when I had my homeless or unhoused years, super broke, just like a lot of struggles in a lot of ways. And I sort of like lost my sexual drive, my, mojo in that arena. And it went on for so long that I really unintentionally got to the point where I just really wasn't feeling desirable. And so I wonder if you can relate to that, where you bounce in and out of it. I feel, thank you, Sherry. It isn't unusual. When we have a lot of other stressors in our lives, it's easy and very common to sort of let that sexual energy go. In other words, just to use our energy for other things. And, that's okay in the short run, but not for 3 years, or not for now, it's 5 years. And so I've really had to look at, now, wait a minute, like feeling like I was desirable. Like, I think that is a really basic principle aspect of healthy sexual expression. Okay, so I'm not talking about compulsive sexual expression, or even, a sexual expression that comes out of obligation or whatever. There's many, sort of unhealthy aspects, or not aspects, but motivators for sexual expression. What I'm talking about is that authentic self that is a sexual being, right? And we all have our unique levels of that, how sexually driven we are, what our libido is, how active that is. And then, of course, there are many things physically that make a difference in that, especially for women, because that's all I know, because that's what I am. The whole journey of being in the years that you can get pregnant, and then up to perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause, our hormone changes will affect our sexual expression, a lot, and what we feel like there, and what that, even physically, what the experience is like, right? So I'm not talking about those health things, okay? You talk to a doctor about that. If you have any thoughts or concerns that is impacting you, then do that, because it is the most normal thing that, of course, modern medicine has spent very little time researching, and for doctors to be really up on women's health, because our medical system comes out of a patriarchal system, and so men's health was much more important. And so many things, even hormone related, they were doing all their research and testing with men, not with women. And obviously we're quite different. But anyway, those things, of course, are beginning to change, and there's a lot better information out and resources out now than there used to be. So we're going to set that on the table and say that part's okay for now, because I'm not really qualified to address all those things. But what I am qualified for is this sort of the aspect of how can I, if I'm not feeling super desirable, okay, if you've lost your mojo like I've sort of lost mine, weight and self-esteem all matter. And the self-esteem part is what I'm, the most qualified to be, addressing here. The weight part always also has self-esteem and mindset portion to it, because there are many women at all weights having great hot sex with people they want to have great hot sex with. But we can have a personal mindset, and certainly there's been a cultural mindset that, the only women who are desirable and sexy are very thin, and, all those things. look a certain way. They have been shown to us visually as being white. So any person of color can often have a hard time seeing themselves in that. Right. So now that's starting to change. I love how much more diverse, at least in skin color, that, even fashion magazines and the beauty world and all of that, there's so much more diversity, not necessarily in size. Although I've been a Vogue reader for probably 30 years, and even Vogue is getting to where at least some of the time they are using models who are not traditional, 246 sized models. They're using, and they're not calling them or drawing attention to it as like, this is our plus size spread or whatever, because that was kind of a thing too, which I guess helped us get there. But it's just like I remember in this last month that I just read a couple weeks ago, just part of one of the articles. I can't even remember what, they were talking about various designers, whatever it was. It was a spread with 3 or 4 models in it that were showing, probably 2 or 3 outfits a piece. And one of the models was, I don't know what size she was, but she had to have been a 14 or 16 or something. And I loved it. It was just like, yes, let's have this sexy, gorgeous women in all sizes, because that's how we are. So there's a whole lot in weight that is also mindset work. One of my favorite movies about this, and it so speaks to this topic of even seeing ourselves as desirable, because that is very much an inside job. You could go out and have, 10 guys, 10 gals, whatever you're attracted to, tell you how sexy and desirable you are. And if you don't believe it, it will not matter. It will bounce right off. And, when we're not with another person, it's easy to think, oh, I wish I had a partner telling me how beautiful I was every day or something like that. Then you go into a bar and a stranger says it and you dismiss it, whatever. So we will dismiss the compliments that we cannot give ourselves. Yeah, Sherry, so true, which is why what I just said with that, like we can only accept the compliments we give ourselves, and we will also accept the criticisms that we give ourselves. Somebody criticizes me in a way that I don't criticize myself, that will also bounce off of me, because I don't say it to myself internally. So if somebody criticized my hair, let's say, oh my gosh, crazy haircut and purple, like what's with the purple? And they were all like judgy about it. That would not upset me. That would not make me question my hairstyle or my hair color or anything, because I love my hair. I think it looks fantastic. So even if somebody criticizes me on it, it will just sort of, roll off like butter on a Teflon pan. I don't know. Because I don't believe that, because I don't criticize myself that way. So by the same token, though, if I didn't think my hair was pretty, or I think my butt is fat, whatever, then it doesn't matter how many people tell me I have an awesome ass. I'm not going to believe it, because I don't think I do. Yes, Sherry. So Sherry's comments here is that, whether it's right or wrong, our perception of ourselves is our reality. Being coached to help overcome the negative mindset is super helpful. Yeah, and I am very secure in my hair. And actually, I love my butt too. So you just can't, you could criticize me on it, but I'm not going to internalize that. So one of my favorite mindset movies, and it also ties in with our theme here of feeling desirable, because it is a feeling. It doesn't matter what size you are. You don't have to lose 5 more pounds before you can feel desirable. You can feel desirable right now, today, exactly as you are. And so my favorite movie that speaks to this so beautifully is called I Feel Pretty. And it is Amy Schumer. And it's several years old. I think right now I'm getting it on something streaming for free because I watched it just maybe a month or so ago. But whatever, if you have to pay for it, rent it on Amazon, I don't know, buy it somewhere, it would be worth $20, way less than a coaching session, right? And so the story is Amy Schumer in her, she's not a skinny woman, okay? I'm not saying she's fat either, but she is not, super skinny model. And in this movie, she works for a fashion magazine like a Vogue or somebody like that. Of course, they don't use that name. But she's like in their customer service, on a phone in a basement somewhere instead of in the home office where, it's all so beautiful. But anyway, she falls off her spin bike in spin class and hits her head and, loses consciousness for a minute. And when she comes to and she looks at herself in the mirror, while of course her body is exactly the same as it was when she walked into the gym that morning, she sees it as different. She sees it as her idea of what a beautiful, sexy woman looks like. So in her mind, she's very thin, and she is very confident and sexy and all these things. And so she just starts living that because she believes it. She thinks she's seeing her body that way, and she thinks it's about her body. That if she had a different kind of body, she would feel sexy. She would be sexy. More men would invite her out. She could get a better job. Like, she has all these things that she believes, as many of us do, that we are held back because we're not fitting what we believe is the, right look for desirable and sexy, which is usually about our bodies. In the realm of desirable and sexy, almost always those judgments are about our bodies. And so she just starts going through her exact same life with a totally different mindset. And it's funny because it's Amy Schumer, right? But it's also so profound. And you can watch that movie and you will see yourself right away in the ways that you diminish yourself or, cut off from yourself what's possible, thinking that it's because of something outside of you. Well, I just don't get those opportunities because I'm too heavy. I don't get those opportunities because, whatever, fill in the blank. And you start to realize that she gets all those opportunities, but only because she believes those opportunities are available to her. Life does happen in real estate. Welcome and thank you for joining us. So that, I feel pretty, Amy Schumer, super great mindset movie on all topics. But the theme that they're on there is sort of that, sort of her desirability, sexual expression, and then her professional endeavors. But it really is about how we're thinking about ourselves. So desirability. So tell me if you want in the comments or again. Yeah, it is so good, Sherry. I've seen it now a couple of times. And even the most recently when I watched it again a couple months ago, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really such a good movie. So it withstands the test of time. It might be 10 years old by now. I don't know. But maybe not that old. Doesn't matter. Go watch it. You will love it. So in that realm of seeing yourself as desirable, and I don't care, you can be, I'm single. I've been single a long time. So this is not about being partnered. This is not about being, gay or straight. Or bi, this is about our own authentic self-expression is always only about me. Like, no one else is in charge of me being unapologetically authentic. It's 100% inside job. Now, I can go in certain rooms, so to speak, literally or figuratively, or with certain people in my family or whatever, and I might not be appreciated for who I am authentically. I might get openly judged for who I am authentically. But they can't make me not be that. Excuse me. I'm the only one who can shut down my authenticity. And again, I'm not saying there's not pressure and that pressure isn't real, especially for any of you, for any of us as women who have been judged as less than because we're women, which is pretty much all women in a patriarchal society, right? Anyone who is a person of color, who is, expressing their gender in a way that's different, whether you're trans or bi, you're not cis straight. You've probably had so much, I just can't imagine that you haven't had so much external judgment. You have so much cultural judgment. My God, we didn't even let gay people get married. So, until a few years ago. So I'm not denying that there is an external pressure to conform. There's a lot of external judgment. Okay, that's real. And that doesn't mean that I can't express myself authentically. I just need to go find the people I can do that with. I was just watching the other night a man called Otto. I think that's the name of it. Tom Hanks' new movie, and it's streaming now free somewhere, Amazon or something. And there's a teeny tiny scene of this teenage kid that comes up and talks to him, who's trans, and was just, sharing that Tom Hanks' wife in the movie was the first teacher in their school who accepted this person and started using their new name. Oh, hey, key lime cakes. And how grateful they were for it. So it is smart when we are in a place where we get judged a lot for who we are, to open ourselves up to people who are trustworthy. I'm not saying that. There's plenty of realities there, but no one can take our authenticity away from us. It is something that is your birthright, and being able to, finding those people where you can be you, but you always get to be you inside. And that also is easier said than done, because when we get conditioned out of being who we are, when we get shamed for being who we are, it can be hard to embrace and express who we are. So, not something I can solve all here in 30 minutes, but just know that you have that power. Like, one of my favorite sayings is, there is no power outside of you that is greater than the power inside of you. So you always have the power to see yourself authentically, to love yourself, to be sexually desirable to yourself, right? I have to be able to do that to myself before I can expect to go out in the world and attract the kind of person who's also going to treat me the same way, because I am treating myself that way. So I'm not going to go out with somebody, once I experience somebody being, say, emotionally abusive or something, I'm not going to stay in that relationship because I'm not willing to be emotionally abusive to myself. So I'm certainly not going to let somebody else be it. Right. So in the same sense, once I'm desirable to myself in my sexual expression, once I'm confident in myself and my body exactly how it is, then I can go bring that to the world, and the people who are attracted to that are the only people I want anyway. Even if it's a needle in a haystack, I don't want someone who doesn't love me exactly as I am, isn't attracted to me as I am. Anybody who's like, yeah, but gosh, if she gained 10 pounds, then I wouldn't be into her. I'm not doing that because I might gain 10 pounds before I'm dead. I don't know. But it just helps us with our own filter and our own boundaries and our own choices in those external relationships. And same thing with even professional relationships where we're not expressing ourselves sexually. That's not the point. It is that whatever you believe you deserve is what you are going to attract. And even if something shows up that is less than that, you just know that, you see it, and you say no to that, But it all has to start in that inner journey, which is why this idea of exploring what delights us and what our desires are is so important, because it is unique to each of us. Thank you, Sherry. I'm so glad that resonates with you. It is unique to each of us. And so there is no one but you to explore who you are as this unique expression of the divine, or unique expression of, the quantum field, or, whatever. There's no two people alike, right? So whatever your religious beliefs or your higher power kind of beliefs are, you are unique. There's no one but you to know you. And then to be able to express you exactly as you are. And to be able to cultivate these things we want to feel. Like now I'm like, okay, I've got to cultivate my own inner sense of being sexually desirable. Because if I don't cultivate that and I go outside of myself looking for it, I'm going to find, it'll be very easy to find somebody who will objectify me and make me their sort of sexual object. And that it can be hard sometimes to discern the difference there. But I could find somebody outside of me who could maybe, quote unquote, make me feel sexy, but then I would be giving them my power. And I don't want to do that because that's very unsafe, especially in a sexual arena, but it's never a good idea to give our power away. So what I'm talking about here in this idea of desirability today, and we may just need to do this again next week because our time is up, but is an internal creation of that. Because when I go into whatever, the dating world, a dating app, a group of people, and I feel desirable instead of looking for someone to compliment me or start flirting with me or ask me out or whatever, then I'm the one in charge of choosing, who I'm attracted to, or if they come up to me, am I enjoying their, who they are, or whatever. It keeps me in charge of my sexual experience and my sexual expression. When I go in thinking, I'm not sure if I really look that great or anybody would be interested in me, and then someone is, then I've suddenly given them the power to tell me whether or not I'm sexy, whether or not I'm desirable, whether or not I'm beautiful, whatever. And then I've given them the power. So I hope that makes sense, because that is not where we want to be. Authentic self-expression is all about owning our own power, knowing you are the one, the only one. And your job here on earth is to be the best you can be, because there will never be another one. And we don't look to people outside of us to tell us what and who we are. So love it. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you all for being here. For everybody who watches it on the replay, be sure and DM me if you have a topic you want me to cover on a Tuesday here in Delight and Desire, or you have a question. You can head on over to my bio for other resources and other videos. I've got a free worksheet on my 10 tips for cultivating delight and desire, all kinds of great stuff in there. So head on over to my bio or drop me a DM. And I've loved being with you. And I will see you again next week. Mwah!